we want to go after a 50 million, let me say it again, a $50 million, what's called an implementation grant to further implement and redevelop Gilpin. And the best way for us to be competitive to do that, and I'm gonna let Jeff Line talk about why that is to transfer Gilpin into the RDC. And Mr. Jeff Lyons, can you go ahead and explain what the benefit it is for that?
Certainly. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Nesmith. So the resolution before you provides for the disposition of the Gilpin Court housing development to the RDC. And doing that, the disposition would be done by basically determining that the property is obsolete, physically obsolete, as we know. And by its disposition, it would accomplish the following. First, it would give us the opportunity in disposing of the property to apply for tenant protection vouchers so that we would receive for all occupied units and all units occupied in the last 24 months, which is virtually close to all the units there, tenant protection vouchers in which we would be able to receive project-based rental assistance at the time in which we effectuate the redevelopment of the property, which we will do over a period of years in phases in accordance with the transformation plan developed under the planning grant that the agency undertook and developed. In doing that, we are in a position where we can then dispose of and where necessarily obtain HUD approval on a phase-by-phase basis for its redevelopment under the Choice program, as well as be in a position where RDC will be participating in the ownership and development entity and will be a part of the redevelopment and the long-term participation and obligations that will go along with the maintenance of the property under the Choice rules and the and long-term affordability. This is a common practice for large urban housing authorities to use this affiliate as a way to trigger the release of tenant protection vouchers, which will provide for us to be able to demonstrate leverage, which is a key aspect of the Choice Neighborhood Program, the ability to be able to leverage third-party financing. So this is a mechanism that allows for it to still be under control indirectly through the RRHA, as well as to take advantage of a HUD subsidy platform that's far more significant than public housing and enable us to raise debt and equity, along with the other commitments we hope to get for the redevelopment of Gilpin under the Choice Implementation Grant. Makes us more competitive.
I had a question. Yeah.
Question, go ahead.
If the chair would allow me to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
I had a question on this. I know it sounds good, but in the phases of the project, how much will you all involve the board, or if we vote from this and then it will be no more board involvement other than if it's a dollar amount over? I want to make sure that the residents have a clear tenant bill of rights and make sure that the RTO is fully informed, and that's it. That's all.
Well, those are good. Those are good points. So first and foremost, under the Choice Neighborhoods program, it requires a high degree of resident participation. Secondly, we are in a position here where we are completing negotiations of a master development agreement in which every development plan for every phase will come back to the board for comment and approval, as well as when we go to do the actual financial closings for each property, when we've lined up the financing for each one before we actually do the close and the conveyance to its new ownership entity for which RDC will be a member. The board will also be given full authority to review and approve those closing documents. So
This the last one.
each and every step of the way. I'm sorry.
Are these funds earmarked? That means if the government should for whatever reason, say no on these funds, are these are earmarked, or do we have enough money in our finance budget
Yeah,
to do
Madam,
such?
yes, so, Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
the
Yes,
50
go ahead.
million that we're going after is a grant application that would be given to us. So that's what it's for.
If we don't get it, can we still move forward? Would this really hurt us?
Yeah, so we have talked about that because we don't know, as you rightfully said, whether or not this administration would move forward with an implementation. So why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because then, by the way, when we go for the implementation grant, we will be going, the city of Richmond would be a partner with us. They have to be in that application. But Jeff, talk a little bit about what we've talked about if we don't win that grant, then how we move forward without that 50 million.
Well, if we don't win the grant, remember the project is still under a HUD declaration of trust, and will have to conform with public housing requirements until a specific phase can be financed and transferred. So there'll be no change in the operations of the development. Also, the RDC is an instrumentality and wholly controlled by the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and will comply with all rules, regulations, and requirements that cover the public housing program. So there'd be no change in the operation of it. We would just simply be eligible for and entitled to project-based vouchers, which would increase our ability to be able to leverage financing. Without the grant, it will be more challenging without the $50 million, but it won't put us in any worse position. In fact, it will be in a better position because we'll have a better subsidy platform in order to access private debt and equity for the renovation of the property.
I don't have any more questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so what is the competitive advantage for transferring it? What do we gain?
You gain tenant protection vouchers.
I want to stop there. Tenant protection vouchers are not a competitive advantage in getting a choice neighborhood planning grant. So go on to your next point.
Okay, the property has been conveyed. Functional obsolescence has been identified as a basis for its transfer, and therefore the need for grant and grant assistance would be substantially improved.
Why can't all of that help? I don't understand why that makes us more competitive in the grant process, though. And also, the tenant protection vouchers don't come until once we've disposed of the property to get the tenant protection vouchers, we can't move more people into Gilpin. So if we dispose of it and we get the tenant protection vouchers, we lock out 791 units of public housing. Once people move out, nobody can move in. I'm not okay with that when we've still got 5 to 10 years before any kind of construction starts on this property. And we don't have nearly enough units in the pipeline to take care of that number of people.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So we will then receive an award of tenant protection vouchers, and they will be allocated to us. But we don't have to take them until we actually do an individual phase if we choose to. Receiving an allocation of vouchers doesn't mean you have to necessarily take them until you're ready to use them.
But once disposition is granted, we can't rent those units anymore.
Oh, no, we can rent them. We can operate it as a public housing
That's not how
development.
Creighton worked.
Well, it may not be how Creighton works, but it is the way it can work. So, in other words, if you dispose of it, RDC will still be receiving the public housing subsidy and required to operate it under public housing rules until an individual phase is disposed of. In all likelihood, HUD will not grant us the ability to have access to all the vouchers unless we relocate all the households which we do not intend to do. We intend to do it on a phase-by-phase basis, and we've got roughly 10 phases to the project. And as you pointed out, and inaccurately so, this will be over a period of many years. The idea would be to lock in the vouchers while they're still available so that they're part of the approval for the project. But it doesn't mean we can't operate it as public housing and have people move in and move out as we need, as we choose to operate the property. Some properties will be disposed of and operated as public housing for a very long time. And I've done that in other cities, and that certainly is permissible.
Speak your mind, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, Commissioner Jackson, I spoke to you a minute ago, and you said that this resolution was not vetted in your committee, correct?
No, not in this written format. No, we didn't discuss this. It may have been something we verbally discussed, but it wasn't a full resolution to this extent. But in that regard, my desire is that we would establish a position one way or the other. From what I understand and how the RDC would be used as a tool for us, I understand what Jeff is explaining. I'm not in disagreement. I think there are many benefits to the RDC, as well as there are areas for our close observation so that we maintain our fiduciary responsibility of oversight.
Okay, I appreciate that. We don't have a development plan yet. I don't think we even have a master development agreement yet. And I think we're really putting the cart before the horse here. I'm not opposed to eventually transferring Gilpin to the RDC. I am in no way in favor of doing it tonight. It's just, I mean, there's no NOFA. We don't know that there's going to be a NOFA. In fact, there is likely not going to be a NOFA. Probably likely not going to be a NOFA for at least the next 4 years from this administration. And I have a lot of questions that I'd like to ask HUD about this to get some assurances that the tenants in Gilpin will be protected. And I need to, we need to have a conversation with our attorneys to ensure that the public process, I hear you saying the public process is going to be followed, but once we dispose of this, it's not ours anymore. And we are charged.
Well, you're not disposing it to a disaffiliated entity.
We are charged with protecting the tenants in Gilpin, not the RDC.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not in favor of this tonight. I'm not saying that I won't be in favor of it at some point, but we are not ready to transfer Gilpin. I'm not ready to transfer Gilpin because I don't know what's going to happen once we do that.
Well, the other option, sir, would be to do this on a phase-by-phase basis and hope we can get tenant protection vouchers as a subsidy platform over time. So the only exigency to all this is there are currently tenant protection vouchers to be allocated, and we don't know whether there will be in the future. So that is just, and again, that may not be sufficient for you, sir, but that's one of the reasons.
Mr. Chairman, the disposition for Creighton took at least 2 years. This is not a fast process. For HUD approval. HUD approval took 2 years, right? For Creighton?
Right.
And I can tell you from personal experience, the HUD workforce is being wiped out. So there's far fewer attorneys at HUD to review these things than there were 4 years ago when we finally got the demo dispo permit from HUD for Creighton. So in terms of needing to get this done now, even if we voted on this tonight, we still have to go through the dispo process with HUD, so it's not going to happen without HUD's approval. So I feel like we have time to make a more thoughtful decision about this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
CEO, I'm in favor of tabling it for us to have a more robust discussion about it. There's no necessarily deadline on it, so I'm in favor of that. But obviously, it's the Board of Commissioners' decision.
I
Are
agree
we,
with her.
are we talking about the establishment of the RDC or turning over open to RDC?
No, sir. We have voted on the establishment of the RDC and its activities, and that has been voted in the affirmative as yes. This is a
Okay.
separate resolution having to do with the transfer of Gilpin into the RDC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of RHA. Listening to, again, there's no deadline on this. And I mean, I think a lot of what Commissioner Hardiman says is true. I think we can have a bit more robust discussion. We wanted to bring it up because we thought that doing so when we would submit the application with the city, the earlier we would do it, the better. But again, we don't have a deadline, and so I'd be in favor of having a more robust discussion about it and tabling it.
Well, if we have robust discussion, nothing precludes us from including the city in the discussion. Am I correct?
Yes, and we would in fact include the city because we would not go forward with it without the city. And we had a conversation with the city about it. Yes, we would include the city in that discussion.
We also need the mayor to issue a letter.
A letter, yeah, but
support.
that's down the way. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Again.
I understand that. It makes sense to do that. I don't know how many of us sitting on this board are familiar with all of the requirements and all of the things that could and should be done in this process, even by just turning over the property to the RDC, of which is still us. So I'm in agreement. If y'all are willing to table it for more discussion, I don't see no harm in that.
Make a vote.
I would make that motion.
And I'll second it. That we
All right,
table.
we have a motion on the table by Mr.
Now-
Hardiman and seconded by Mrs. Pitchford to table resolution number 2. Are there any more questions regarding this motion?
Yes. This discussion, will it come through the real estate committee? Where would it go? Who would be facilitating this discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. It would come to the real estate committee.
Yes. Okay. Well, I have every confidence that our real estate chair, will ask the good questions.
All right, are we ready for a vote to table resolution 2? Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Pitchford,
Aye.
Ms. Brody,
Aye.
Mr. Elliott, Mr. Hardiman,
Aye.
Mr. Jackson,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis, Ms. McCray.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Now,